Okay, good evening everyone and welcome back again. So last time we were talking a little bit about our potential Buddha nature, but actually before we start I'll just skip some, just have a thought in terms of our motivation, and as we've done in previous sessions, the motivation with which we begin an activity colours or flavours the rest of that activity. So it can be something really basic. If you're cooking food for someone, do you do it, I've got to cook food for them, it's sort of an obligation, or do you do it out of a sense of love? And sort of the flavour that comes through in the food and the joy you give for yourself and others really depends on the motivation that you start with. So if you've got a positive, open, warm-hearted motivation, then what follows will come out in a much more positive, warm-hearted manner. So if we can develop a really broad motivation, so it could be something on the lines of, my purpose for being here today or tonight is to help myself develop so I can reduce or eliminate all my faults and so I can develop all my positive qualities. And that through that process, may that become a cause for me to be able to help other living beings to do the same, so they can find complete peace and happiness and be free of any problems or suffering in their life. So we'll just give a moment or two to sort of generate your own motivation in terms of how you feel comfortable, and then we'll begin with the talk. Right, so last week we were talking about the idea of our inner potential, and which we can define, if you like, as our Buddha nature or Buddha potential. And we look at the idea, if we look deep within our mind, the nature of our mind is it's something pure. It has awareness and as clear and aware or clear and knowing. Now at the moment for us, our mind doesn't always appear that way. We get caught up in thoughts or disturbance. We might have an interaction with someone and we spend the rest of the day or the next few days just running through things in our mind, and our inner happinesses can be quite disturbed by that. And there's a whole range of things that can disturb our inner well-being. But underlying that, like I said, the nature of our mind is something that's pure. If we look at, say, something like coal, no matter how hard you scrub away at a piece of coal, its nature is black and it will always stay black or dark. As a human being or living being, who's a combination of body and mind, our mind is not like coal. It has a pure, it is something that's pure. We have what are called obscurations on our mind, or things that obscure our mind, disturb our mind, but they're not the pure nature of their mind. They can be separated. So a little bit, if you've got clothing with dirt in it, we can wash the clothing as long as we use the right technique, whether it's the right laundry powder or the right solvent, etc. We can remove all those dirt and stain from the clothing, so we have a nice clean, we get a piece of clothing that's nice and clean. So mind is something that's similar. We can get to the point where we realise the true nature of our mind. Now the difficulty, of course, is that at the moment we've got some obscurations. And I mean, there are two main ones that I want to talk about today. So the first obscuration is the ignorance of self-grasping. The other obscuration is the mind of self-cherishing. Now, self-grasping, if we look at that, what's called, sometimes referred to as ignorance, we can talk ignorance in terms of two things. One, the things that we don't know. So when I look around, I'd hate to say this, I don't know your names, so I'm ignorant of that. But I could have another ignorance and say, well, look, you're Fred or you're Bruce. So not only do I not know your name, I'm clinging on to this idea of a false idea of getting you a name which is not your name. So there's two sorts of ignorances there. Now, what we're looking at is in terms of ignorance of how things exist. So at the moment what our mind does, it looks at and perceives an object, whether it's an object like the table here, or whether you look at yourself. And this object, like the table itself, will appear as a concrete, permanent, self-existing entity. And there's some sort of special characteristic that appears. Here's this table that's solid and permanent and sort of existing from its own side in front of me. In a similar way, we've got a view about ourselves. That's very similar. Now, because we've got this false view of the table or ourselves, there's a whole bunch of things that flow on from that. So what's happening is, because we've got this false view of ourselves, false view of objects around us, or the various sense objects we interact around us, the appearances we have in this life and believe in are not true. It's a little bit, the classic example, of course, if you see a mirage, it has the appearance of water, and if we believe it's water, we'll behave towards it in a certain way. If we look at the mirage and recognise, oh no, this is a mirage, although there's the appearance of mirage, we're not caught up in the belief it's a mirage, and so we interact with it in a different manner. And we're not going to sort of try and battle our way across the desert to get to something that although it appears one way to us, isn't the way that it appears. And so our whole interaction with the world, for us, is a little bit that way. And so what's happening is we've got the projection of our mind. And each one of us, we come from a slightly different background, certain different experiences, which colour the projections we make, whether it's on other people or the things around us, for example. And the difficulty is that we completely and utterly believe in the appearances of things in front of us as they are. Right? So we might believe this person's my friend, this person's my enemy, I like this, I don't like that. And and our whole life is built on the appearances that we have, even though they're false. And so sometimes you might hear the word the karmic vision. So we've all got certain energy that has been imprinted on our mind stream, in this life and previous lives, if you like, various habits, etc. And based on our beliefs, we then have certain views of things. So, for example, some people like Donald Trump, some people don't like Donald Trump. In between, he is a human being who wants to be happy and doesn't want to be happy. But based on our own values, our perceptions, etc., we see different people in different ways. And we're not seeing them 100% accurately. Now, we're not saying these people don't exist. It's more that the way that how these things appear to us isn't completely in accord with reality. Because we believe these things are permanent, never change, they're concrete, they're a self-existent entity. Now, we can do an analysis, if you like, and this is an analytical type meditation we can do. So if we look at the table's made of parts. So we can see that the table's got a tabletop or a surface, it's got some legs, and it's probably got a few other things to help it structure. But we'll keep it really simple. It's got 4 legs and it's got a tabletop. So the thing is, what is the table? So is the table the combination of the parts that make it up, for example? Is the table something that's separate from those parts completely? Is the table just one of the parts individually? Right? So what is the actual table? Now the problem is we say that if we say the table's made of parts, or the table is the combination of parts, which part is the table? Is it the leg that's the table? Is it the top of the table? The problem is if it's, we've got this belief there's a single table. But if it's a table that we say, the table's made of parts, then which part is the table? And so it creates problems for us trying to sort that out. And it's just similar for us when we look at our body and mind. Let's say we're made up of a consciousness and a body. Is the I or me the combination of the body and the mind? In which case there should be 2 I's, one for the mind, one for the body. Is it just the body? In other words, does the mind matter? Is it the mind but not the body? Or is it a label that's something that's neither the body nor the mind? But either way, if we sort of pursue that logically, we start to run into problems because we can't find this particular concrete, self-existent, permanent entity of an I that we believe exists here. And so in a meditation session, what you sort of get advice to is think of a situation where your sense of I has arisen very strongly. So you might have to visualise someone insulting you or something like that, or if you don't like heights, standing on the edge of a tall building or something like that, just to get that sense of I arising. Then you sort of sit back a fraction, okay, what does this sense of I feel like? Now try and get a sense of what it is just by being a fraction distant. Once you've got some sort of sense of the appearance of I happening, then we can start to look, okay, is this I real? Does it exist the way I believe? So does it exist one with the body, although the body's many parts, so maybe there's many eyes? Does it exist with my mind, but my mind's something that's changing? Is it the combination of the two, which means there should be two eyes? Or is it neither of them? And if it's neither of them, then when someone hits you, you can't really say, look, you hit me. I've been hit, or something like that. Or if someone says insulting to you, I've been upset. Right? So we use I in a whole range of ways, either relate to identify with our body, or identify with our mind, or some sort of combination. Now, I need to emphasise, I'm not saying that we do not exist. We exist. We all experience reality from day to day. We also don't, but the other thing is we don't exist permanently either. The I is, our sense, even looking at how we see our sense of I, is something that's changing moment by moment. And the base on which we label I, our body and mind, is also changing moment by moment as well. So we're not saying there's inherently self-existent I that somehow or other exists without dependence on anything, and nor are we saying there is no I at all, that we don't exist. So we don't have a nihilistic point of view. What we're saying is that the way we view the I is not correct. There is an I, or a thing, and what we're looking at I is, we can say it's a label. Right? And when we were babies, I look at our two kids, we took about a week or so for each kid to work out a name for them. So, for example, my oldest daughter's called Lolita. So, there was no Lolita for about a week. She was a baby. Then we labelled her and gave her the label and the name Lolita. And she's built this identity around that during her life. And we've also built this identity of thing about her as Lolita, our daughter Lolita, or whatever. So it's like that. So she hasn't always been Lolita. There was a time when she wasn't. And then we labelled her. So really when we look at the sense of I, it's a label on a collection of parts. And if we use the language of Lama Zopa, he'll talk about sort of something being merely labelled. It's a designation or a label and no more. But for us, we build up that designation or label, which is imputed on a set of sort of, ever-changing continuum of body and mind. We impute on that in reality something that's not changing, it's permanent, it exists from its own side or inherently existent. We use that sort of language. And because we've got this concrete sense of I, which is inflexible, and it creates a lot of problems for us. And it's really interesting, when you come in the door from outside, you'll see there's a picture above the wall, above the door, and that's called the Wheel of Life, or the 12 Links of Interdependent Origination. And the first link that starts the cycle of life going is called ignorance, which is what I'm talking about now. The second link is called karmic formations. And there's a really interesting little image that they use for that. And the image is a person moulding with a potting wheel and clay, moulding a shape, moulding something. And that moulding at the moment is based on ignorance. So what's happening? We're shaping or moulding our life from moment to moment based on ignorance or a fundamental mistaken view of the reality of ourselves and of external phenomena. And because it's based on a wrong thing, it then creates problems to us. So right in the centre of wheel existence, they've got three animals. They've got the rooster or bird, they've got a pig and they've got a snake. So the pig represents ignorance, the snake represents anger, and the rooster represents attachment. Right? So these are energies that create problems for us. So from our ignorance we generate, if we have objects that we overestimate the value of and think these are good, that's the mind of attachment arising. If we have other objects, whether it's people or sense objects, and we underestimate and think, look, I don't like this, and we have aversion to it, this is the beginning of the mind of anger occurring. So, and then from there, we get other sorts, we have pride and jealousy, impatience, and a whole range of other things that happen. Now, we're not completely riddled with negative emotions or afflicted states of mind. Remember I said we've got Buddha nature or Buddha potential. All of us from time to time have a sense of warmth arise within us towards other people. Whether it's our own children, our partners, our friends, etc., or cute little animals, then we all have that. We all have a sense of generosity. We look at certain times and think, oh, I want to give you, let's give you this or help here. We've got positive qualities as well. But what we're sort of talking about here is what are some of the things that obscure or make it harder for us to manifest those positive qualities on a more continual basis and on a greater basis. So ignorance is a really, really important one. The other one I said was self-cherishing. Now, self-cherishing in a very simple way is putting our happiness and well-being ahead of others. And it's very interesting, one of the verses in, I think those puja we often do here called Guru Pujas, and it's something like I've got to try and remember it, it's roughly along the line, all happiness comes from cherishing others. All faults or problems or suffering come from cherishing ourselves. So it's a very, very powerful verse to look at that and say, okay, if I'm interacting with other people and I put myself first, is that creating problems for me or creating happiness for me? Or in a situation where spontaneously you're sort of thinking of others or giving to others, otherwise you're cherishing others, thinking about others, does that make you feel better or make your life better or yourself as an individual better? And so that's the other issue for us, is the self-cherishing, is putting our own welfare ahead of others. Now, we're not saying that you shouldn't look after yourself. I mean, you've got to look after your health, for example. You still need to earn an income, so you pay your bills, all that sort of stuff. It's an inner... so it's a matter of being pragmatic in terms of you've got to look after your things of this life. But also part of this life is what's happening inside. And for the people with this attitude of cherishing others more than themselves, the more we develop that, the better we are. And if we meet some people who have those qualities, they're pretty amazing. And you can feel, the person who's got that sort of energy is special. And there are people we bump into from time to time that seem to emanate or exude that energy. And of course, I sort of think, I wouldn't mind be. I'd like to be like that. But the habits we have are quite ingrained and do take quite a while, or a long, long time to overcome. But if we're aware that self-cherishing is an inner enemy for us, and cherishing others is part of our inner wealth, we can start to sort of put ourselves on a path where we're trying to, let's reduce let's be aware when the self-cherishing arises. Does that make me feel comfortable inside when I see that pop up? And also be aware that when the cherishing others or the warmth for others to arise, how does that feel inside when the energy pops up? And hopefully we'll start to notice that gives us a nicer feel. We feel more calm inside ourselves, more peaceful, more positive, and also more energetic as well. We sort of can start to feel those sorts of things. So in an ideal world, if we can spend time every day trying to build that positive energy and reduce the things that constrict or imprison or entrap us into a locked-in view of the world and how we interact with others, then we're going to be much better off. Now, I've just about done my 20 minutes of talking, believe it or not. But I might just do a time. So I'm going to do an analytical meditation tonight. And just because before we can the preliminary to developing qualities like love and compassion or cherishing, thinking more of others, is to equalise the way we look at other people. So I'm not using the word homogenise here, or let's make our emotions more bland. But at the moment when we look at people, we tend to look at they're people we don't know. They're people we may have a dislike or aversion towards, or in some cases they might be a strong enemy, and we feel very uncomfortable around them. Or there are other people who've got a strong attraction, some form of attraction to we want them near us, we want to be near them. But to some extent these things have the flavour or colour of, what I was saying, the minds of ignorance and anger and attachment. And we want to sort of, is to reduce those minds, those faults in our mind. So we've got a more open attitude towards everyone, where we see them equally. And there are a number of techniques for doing this. The one I'm going to do tonight is to look at every individual, say, all of us are completely equal in wanting happiness and not wanting unhappiness. Now, of course, how people go about that sometimes can be to the detriment of other people. Right? Their happiness might be the fact that they get enjoyment out of harming someone. For other people, they might get their happiness out of seeing how fast they go on a motorbike or a car or something like that, or watching their favourite TV show, or cooking a nice meal for people, or whatever. We've all got different methods or ways that we use in our life to try and find happiness and unhappiness. To find happiness. No, we don't want to find unhappiness, do we? And to avoid unhappiness. And so what we're looking at is, look at the people around. Start with the people you know, just a small number of people, like it's your parents, your children, your partners, or some of the people you work with, and just look at that person. And what we do is look and say, what is that person? Do they want happiness just like I do? Do they want to avoid suffering or problems like I do? And see if you can see that in them, and then look at what are the sorts of things they do and it might help think, what are they doing to find happiness and avoid suffering, for example? And you can look and say, what do I do to do that? And what we're trying to do is generate a sense that in one respect, we are all equal from the point of view that each one of us, no matter what we do, how reprehensible an individual we are or how amazing an individual we are, underlying what we do is this desire to find happiness and to avoid unhappiness. Okay? So, let's get ourselves in a nice posture, and we'll do a few sort of so nice straight back. If you need to wriggle a bit first to make yourself comfortable, by all means do that. Get to a point where your body feels at ease and your mind feels clear. Your head's tilted forward very slightly, your eyes are almost closed. Right hand on top of the left, the tip of your tongue at the back of your top teeth. And we're breathing in a nice relaxed manner without really trying to control our breath. And so as we breathe out, we imagine negative energy going out. As we breathe in, we can imagine positive energy coming in and going through every single part of our body, filling us with light and peace and calm and happiness. So we'll just do that for a minute or so to help calm our mind and sort of bring our mind in from the busyness of the day and to centre it a little bit. So now visualise or imagine a couple people in front of you. So then you can start, say, obviously a couple of friends to start with, others people you feel more comfortable with. And just think about them and how that, just like me, they equally want in their life to be experiencing happiness and avoiding unhappiness. And if it helps, you can think about, okay, what are the types of things you do to experience happiness and avoid happiness? And what's the sorts of things that they do? But remember, the ultimate conclusion is that they're just like me. We're completely equal. Now extend your visualization and picture a couple more people in front of you. And if you feel comfortable with this, you can also pick out a few people that you tend to avoid or not tend to avoid as well, or dislike even. In other words, some of the people who are difficult for you in your life. And again, with that difficult person, look at the sorts of actions they do and try to think, is this person doing those actions in order to find happiness and to avoid unhappiness? And if so, they're exactly the same as me, although of course the actions they do are different. But the underlying motivation is the same. They want happiness and don't want unhappiness. So now we can expand that visualisation analysis to a few more people and keep building it up and up to include all our relatives and friends, people we work with, the people we know. And then once that's, if you have the sense or feeling within you arise in your heart, oh, we're all equal, at that moment you can stop the analysis and just sit with that feeling. So whether a person is old or young, male or female, a doctor or a nurse, a carpenter or a brickie, a murderer or a thief, or even a Collingwood supporter, they're all completely equal in wanting happiness and trying to avoid suffering. While the actions they may manifest to do that will vary. But underneath that, the underlying motivation for all of us is exactly the same. Okay, we'll take a moment to come out of the meditation. So normally that meditation will be followed by meditation on looking at how our existence is dependent on the kindness of others, whether it's direct or indirect. But tonight we don't have time to talk about that. But I do need to jump back to the table. The table's going to be very upset, but there's something I omitted to say about the table. When we look at the table, and like ourselves as well, it's what's called a dependent arising. And it's dependent on three things. It's dependent on causes and conditions. In other words, the wood and the hands of the person who made it, for example. It's dependent on its parts, so the fact it's got a tabletop and legs. And it's also dependent on imputation and labelling, the fact that this has been a suitable base, because this object will perform the function of a table, so we can conventionally label that as a table, and we'll all understand what we're saying. So there's three things there in terms of dependent arising, of whether it's a table, a human being, causes, it comes into being through causes and conditions, through labelling, and my mind's gone blank. And its parts was the third one. So cause and conditions, parts, and labelling are the three things that make any object come into being, if you like. Okay, that's enough from me at the moment. Has anyone had a question spring into the mind during the night? Or got a question about what's been said? I might have to ask you a question. How do anyone want to share how they found that meditation tonight?
I found that you always go back to that place where everyone's after happiness and avoiding unhappiness, so everyone you meditate on boils down to the same thing. So it's really saying, no matter who you're looking at, it's universally we're all equal. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, so the quick thing is, so whoever we're looking at, are we all equal? From that point of view, yes. And what it does, it then sets because what it's trying to do is we're dealing with the fact that our mind discriminates against people. And there's basically three sorts of things happening in our mind when we interact with other people, other objects. One, it's sort of neutral to us, we don't really care, it's unimportant. We either attracted to it, we want it closer to us, or we have aversion, want to push it away. So that's what's happening, underlying what's happening, or underlying part of what's happening when we interact with other people. And so our mind can become fairly rigid and say, label this person's friend, this person's enemy, or that person's stranger, and go that way. And there is another equilibrium meditation which focuses entirely on the idea of friend, enemy, stranger. But that's one for another time. Here we're sort of trying to look at it a slightly different way, in that we're all equal from the point of view that we equally want happiness and don't want suffering, and that levels the playing field, so we can then sort of do the follow-up meditation that come with that. And the follow-up meditation is how we're dependent on the kindness of others. So, for example, other people pay our wages. Our clothes have been made by other people, and maybe in a place like Bangladesh where they've had to work in a sweatshop or something like that, and it's been here. The clothes themselves, the fabric from the clothes is made. Something like, if you've got cotton clothing, it was made in a cotton field. And I did work in a cotton fields once, a long time ago, but they spend a lot of time spraying insects in cotton fields, for example, and some people get sick from it. Obviously, insects don't do terribly well. It's got to be harvested, it's got to be processed. There are people involved in every step of the way for all the items or things in our life that we enjoy. Then we have the direct kinds, the person who cooks us a meal, the person who washes our clothes, that we have someone who washes our clothes. But all those sorts of things. And even once you become a more advanced practitioner, the person who irritates you is performing a kindness. Now, I must admit, this one's a challenge. There's a person, because what that person is doing, they're acting like a mirror for your mind. So, if someone does something, you get irritated by it, you can think, oh, that irritated me. Why did that irritate me? So you can then try and work to okay, how do I let go of that so next time it doesn't irritate me? And I can remember when I was living in Dharamsala, I had a guy next door to me, and he was a little bit volatile. He was a redhead, classic redhead, a little bit volatile. Eh? I was never red. Okay. Are you a classic redhead? Yes. Look, he's one of my best mates. But we used to have a German nun. You have to imagine this German nun, she's gone through the war, she's very stern, quite rigid, all that sort of thing, in certain ways. Again, look, very interesting personal background. But she escaped out of Germany at the end of the war, went through England and ended up in India. And she used to collect stray dogs. And these dogs, we had a shared veranda, and these dogs would start barking. And sometimes this guy, my mate, was a bit tense. And he walked pacing up and down, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a mantra of compassion. And the dogs would get to him and then kick the dog just about. But he'd get angry with the barking dogs. There's other times when he was more mellow, that didn't bother him. So you can sort of see annoying things are a mirror for your own mind. So at a certain point when you get good enough, they're showing us kindness as well. But at the moment, not the way we really want, because we want everyone to be nice to us. But so the next meditation is meditating on the kindness of others too. How we get our food, how we have roads to drive on, how we get our wages, how we get our clothes, all the friendship of other people, etc. So you're saying, okay, this is amazing. Isn't this amazing? So then you might have thought, okay, what about repaying that kindness? What can I do to repay that kindness? And of course we can do the meditation. Okay, what are the faults of this self-cherishing mind? What are the advantages of the mind cherishing others? And then so again, what we're trying to do is build our mind towards generating love and compassion, and ultimately developing the wish or the intention. Can I become a fully awakened being in order to liberate all beings from the problems that they have and develop all the qualities that they have? And in Sanskrit, that word's called bodhicitta. In English, there's a range of translations. One's dedicated heart, but a lot of people tend to use a Sanskrit word rather than try and translate in English. So that's sort of where these meditations are taking us to, if you like. So I've just done the beginning portion, which is sort of, when you're growing a garden, first thing you've got to do is even it out, flatten the ground a bit and prepare the soil so you can plant some good seeds in, etc., and work with, add a bit of fertiliser and nutrient, all that sort of stuff. So our mind's a little bit that way, cultivating our mind, and this meditation is cultivating the mind from the point of view of how we view other people and trying to see them as equal. And one respect, it's like a little bit, I often deal with difficult people in my job, and you sort of, with I guess a little bit of wisdom or age, you get a bit philosophical. So when someone's arcing up or being oppositional or feral or difficult, you've got enough space to sit back and say, okay, let's not push this kid, give them some space to sort of calm down. Then we'll deal with them and sort of pull them into line once we've got them settled. But you're not going to become from a point of view where you're being so reactive. But you can sort of see, look, this kid's out of control, etc. And you're operating from a different mental space. So this meditation helps in that situation if we practice it a lot. Okay, other questions or comments? It's not time to go yet. It's my last Thursday. That's my last Monday for this month. Next month is Dennis. Dennis is good. You'll enjoy him. Anyway, about 12 minutes to go. And it shouldn't be me talking all the time. Yes.
I lived in a house where the neighbour had
So, absolutely, that's part of it for sure, that our mind interprets. So what was being said, this lady was saying that she's got neighbour with wind chimes, and when she's relaxed the chimes sound beautiful. If she's agitated or feeling tight inside or trapped inside, the chimes are just a burden or something unpleasant. And so what's apparent here is as the mind is going up or down, your reaction to something that's the same, which is a wind chime, just the chimes happily sort of doing their thing in the wind, that hasn't changed, but your mind's changed and therefore your interpretation has changed. Absolutely, yes. But of course, chimes aren't people, so we're not going to meditate. Those chimes are trying to find happiness just like I am, but the neighbour is. I know my brother used to get annoyed with hated neighbours, the back neighbours with barking dogs. Because we've got some dogs at home. I just think the dog's just talking to me. The dog just wants to talk. But so I've got a slightly different attitude though. Now, did I see a hand? Yes.
What's the practice to?
Sorry, you have to.
What's the practice to bring it back to yourself?
I guess awareness. Yeah, because what's happened with more meditation, so if we're watching the breath meditation very regularly, we're focused on being aware of our mind. And what's going to happen is you'll do your formal meditation, say in the morning or night time or something like that, or maybe in periods in between. With practice, what happens is when you leave the formal meditation, sitting on your cushion, your seat, you'll carry some of that awareness with you. So as you go throughout the day, you're slightly more aware of what's going on in your mind than what used to be the case. Then as our meditation gets stronger and deeper, and we do more of it, that awareness will become stronger as well. What's called the post-meditation phase. What we're trying to do, of course, is whether in formal meditation or we're doing activities, as much as possible, we're being aware of what's going on in our mind and how we're interacting with what's around us, or how we're responding. In other words, what's coming up in our mind as different stimuli arise. So whether it's the annoying stimuli or the pleasant stimuli or the neutral stimuli, and that can be external stimuli, or it can be some of the stuff that's churning through your mind at the time, or the physical sensations in your body. Because if your body's giving you pain, especially for people who get old, that happens more and more if you get sick or you get drugs that affect your mind's foggy or affect how your body feels. That's all stimuli. And if we're really aware, we can start to see how are these things affecting us. And if you're aware of how something's affecting you, you've got some choice. If we're unaware, we've got no choice. We're just going to react. But if we've got some awareness, we've got a choice, because there's a space or a gap. And we can choose, okay, what's a wise way to respond here? Now, often we'll sort of get caught up, then later on think, oh, I got caught up on this. You'll realise you've been caught up. And again, that's a benefit of having developed some awareness. And then you think, then you can think, well, was that pleasant or unpleasant? And probably you think, I got agitated, I felt very uncomfortable, I lost my sense of well-being. And you're going to be aware, think, I don't want this to happen again. So you've got a stronger energy that next time this happens, it may arise, but you're going to be a bit more on the ball to recognise this is what's happening and to pull back from that. And eventually get to the point where, I'm not sure when, where that'll happen and you won't get caught up at all. So it's a lifetime. There's a lifetime job in that, or maybe a few lifetimes. And certainly, for example, one of the antidotes to that is how we view the object, which is this thing we're talking about there. We were talking before we went back, the idea of ignorance and the way that we view things. There's a false belief there. And if we can chip away at that false belief, just looking at what I'm seeing, one sort of way of doing this is my mental projection, right? The wind chimes. We have different view of the wind chimes. That's the mental projection, depending on how we are. But also we're looking at the wind chimes as being existing from their own side, having this concrete sort of thing. And really it's a labelled object. It's come into being through causes and conditions, parts, and being labelled. And that's its existence. There's no more to it than that. And so for people who get that realisation, I'm certainly not one of them, they're called liberated beings. They're liberated from that trap of what's called samsara or cyclic existence, which is driven by delusion and karma, propelled by those two energies. That's what we're trying to gradually free ourselves from. And then apparently life will be much better. But on the path, life will get better. But it's a process. It's not something that happens magically. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome. Other questions or comments? So quiet. Okay. So if there's no more questions, I'll advertise. I'll plug a guy called Dennis Marsh will be leading the next 3 weeks. And I know he's been preparing it for quite a while, because he and I have chatted now and then, so he's been working on it probably the last couple of months. But he'll be good. Now, to finish off, as we've done the last 3 weeks, so we started with a motivation. So we've tried to say, okay, let's have a positive energy to propel or imbue what we're doing tonight. So now we've come to the end of what we've been doing tonight and what we've done the last 4 weeks, for those who've managed to come all 4 weeks. So what we want to do is now focus that towards the goal that we started with. And so when we dedicate our energy, that focused energy stops it dissipating or being lost. And also the traditional teachings will say it'll help protect that energy from the effects of anger. Because anger has the power to destroy a lot of positive energy very, very quickly. Really quickly. And we don't want that. We want to protect this energy. At the moment, our wisdom light inside us is a little bit like a candle, and the winds around us can blow it out fairly easily or make it flicker. And what we're trying to do is generate a really strong light in us that's within our heart that is indestructible, and nothing can blow it out. Right? Okay, so that's where we're sort of trying to aim for. So we're going to dedicate, so let's close our eyes. We'll just dedicate the positive energy we've made today and in the past, that it becomes a cause for the welfare and happiness of all beings. And remember, within all beings, that includes us. So ourselves and all beings. Because the happier the being we are, the more we can benefit others. The more evolved we are, the more we can benefit others. The more we can eliminate our faults and develop our qualities, the more we can benefit others and help others. And that in turn is what makes our life more meaningful and particularly more happy. There is more inner peace, more calm. So as His Holiness Dalai Lama often says, you need to have smart selfishness. The smart selfishness is the idea, I will benefit others, because that's what brings you the most benefit. That's what brings us the most benefit and happiness. Okay, thank you everyone for coming tonight and the other weeks, and thanks for your attention and the lovely questions we've had. So now there's, as per usual, if you want to stay behind, there's a cup of tea and I think some bickies and stuff in the dining room if you want. Otherwise, enjoy yourselves and have a happy Christmas and all that sort of stuff. So thanks everyone.